breakthrough in starring a kid but featuring sophisticated storytelling. Skippy ended up receiving a commemorative stamp from the U.S. Post Office in 1997, and yes, one of the merchandising brands was Skippy Peanut Butter, which you can still find on store shelves today. To help capitalize on every bit of the Sunday page, King Features introduced toppers in 1926, which featured a new strip at the top of every Sunday page. These would include such things as No Brains But and Dot and Dash, along with classic features like Abby the Agent and Homeless Hector. Other features provided by King Features for the Sunday pages were paper dolls and crossword puzzles. While successful, these would end in 1963, as many papers preferred to use the top of the comic strip page for advertising. Tim Tyler's Luck launched on April 13th in 1928 about boy pilots, Tim and Spud, and was drawn by Lynn Lemon Young, Chick Young's younger brother. By 1930s, it was a full-on adventure strip set in Africa, with Tim and Spud now a few years older and working for the Ivory Patrol. Among the artists that was working on this was Alex Raymond, whose art was still evolving. Highly successful, it would inspire a film series that lasted until August 24th of 1996. One of the most successful characters launched by King Features was Popeye the Sailor, who debuted on January 17, 1929 by Elzer Crisler, E.C. Seeger, in the Thimble Theater strip. He joined the cast at Thimble Theater, which had appeared 10 years earlier on December 19, 1919, not only replacing Castor Oil as the strip's star, but entrancing his sister, Olive Oil, and eventually having the strip named after him. Straight up OG, Popeye. The character of Popeye would become one of the most recognizable characters in history, and at the highest popularity, Popeye ranked next to Mickey Mouse and Superman. Soon, his supporting cast filled out with Giesel, Sweet Pea, that hamburger-loving Wimpy, and the nefarious Sea Hag. Seeger even managed to add to the English language with introductions of Eugene the Jeep and Alice the Goon. Upon Seeger's untimely death in 1938, artists Don Winner and Bella Zoboli took over until Seeger's former assistant, Bud Zagendorf, took over and led the character all the way into the 1990s, when the daily strip ended on July 30th, 1994, though the Sunday strip still continues to this day. Popeye the Sailor remains one of the most popular characters ever invented, inspiring numerous cartoons, TV shows, and comic strips, and no less than Charles Schulz called the strip perfect in drawing and humor. As for its creator, E.C. Seeger, he would have an award named after him by the National Cartoonist Society for making unique and outstanding contributions to the art of cartooning. Recipients of the E.C. Seeger Award include Milton Caniff, Hal Foster, and Al Cap. A different kind of strip was Ripley's Believe It or Not by Robert Ripley, which detailed many extraordinary tales around the world. It originally launched on December 19, 1918 in the New York Globe, produced by Robert Ripley, for which it was named after. Eventually, the feature moved to Hearst, the New York American, where King Features then syndicated internationally, where it would stay until 1989, when the United Features Syndicate took over the syndication to this day. Of note, of the many features in Ripley's Believe It or Not, one was in 1937, being Charles Schulz's first public work, as he sent a story in about his dog Spike and his crazy eating habits, as he ate everything from erasers to thumbtacks. Spike, of course, would be the Schultz's inspiration for Snoopy, and while King Features would never syndicate Peanuts, they could claim they published the first Snoopy, at least an inspiration. In the 1930s, it would see the rise of the humor strip as Chick Young launched Blondie on September 8, 1930. Despite the success of his flapper strip Dumb Dora, Young wanted to move on with a new strip, and he would own and even threaten to quit and leave for Europe. Finally, Joseph W. Connolly, King Features' general manager, offered him a new deal. The story focused on Blondie, a dim-witted gold-digging flapper, and Dagwood Bumstead, one of her suitors in the era of a railroad fortune. Young moved away from a gag-a-day format to an overarching story of Dagwood trying to get Blondie to marry him, resulting in him even rejecting his parents' fortune to get a job of his own. Dagwood and Blondie would eventually wed in February 17, 1933, with their first child, Baby Dumpling, being born on April 15, 1934. Soon, Blondie morphed from a flapper strip into a family domestic strip that set the standard for the genre and would be the most popular one in the 1940s that still runs to this day, with Chick Young's son, Dean Young, continuing as writer as Chick would have died in 1973. Another significant contribution to Blondie and Chick Young gave to the comic strip was hiring a young Alex Raymond out of King Features' bullpen as his assistant, who helped draw the lavish wedding between Dagwood and Blondie. As for Lee Young's original strip, Dumb Dora, Paul Fung would take over that. King Features Syndicate also got into licensing property as well, providing comic strips, notably from Walt Disney, whose Mickey Mouse made his cartoon debut in 1928 in the now legendary Steamboat Willie short cartoon. Marking the start of the Disney Empire, and would of course later feature in the Marvel Comics, Mickey Mouse got his own comic strip on January 13, 1930, drawn by Floyd Gottesdron in the New York Mirror. The strip had Mickey going on various adventures battling pirates and mad scientists. A Sunday strip was added on January of 1932, sharing a full page with another Disney strip, Silly Symphony, which for the first 2 years was the domain of Bucky Bug, the first original Disney character from a comic strip. The strip would later feature a rotating series of features starring such characters as Pluto, the Three Pigs, and Little Hiawatha. Silly Symphony would later feature adaptation of Snow White and Pinocchio by the 1930s and 1940s, and starred Jose Corrico and Panchinko from the Three Caballeros before ending on October 7, 1945. On February 7, 1938, Donald Duck got his own daily strip by Al Taliaferro, who was the inker on the Mickey Mouse strip, with Bob Karp as the writer, followed by a Sunday strip on December 10th of 1939. However, unlike Mickey and Donald Duck was a gag a day over being an adventure strip. Disney would add 2 more strips, Jose Corrico in 1943 and later Pachito, as a result of the good neighbor policy to win friends in Latin America, based on the characters from the Saludos Amigos and the Three Caballeros films of 1943 and 1945, respectively. Another Disney comic strip was Uncle Remus and the Tales of Brer Rabbit, inspired by the Disney film Song of the South, which strangely can no longer be viewed anywhere, including Disney+. And that premiered on October 14th of 1945 and lasted in 1972, while Scamp from The Lady and the Tramp received his own strip in 1955. Outside of these strips, Disney also produced Treasury Classic Tales from 1952 to 1987, which were adaptations of Disney live-action films and a series of Christmas specials from 1960 to 1987. Disney would close down its comic strip division in 1990, with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck lasting for only a few years afterwards in 1995. Before it ended, though, Disney also produced strips featuring Winnie the Pooh and the Adventures of the Gummy Bears, all which were produced under King Syndicate. They'll Do It Every Time premiered on February 5th, 1929, a single or 2-panel gag strip created by Jimmy Haschio, often mocking deceptive human behavior and ironies. It would last until February 3rd of 2008, with the title becoming a popular catchphrase, despite many not knowing where it originally came from. They'll Do It Every Time was one of the many zany strips that became so popular at the time, with artist Milt Gross being prominent among the cartoonists who produced them, along with several strips such as Banana Oil, Count Screwloose of Toulouse, and Nee's Baby from his book. And Milt Gross even worked in movies. As part of his legacy as a cartoonist, the National Cartoonist Society supervises the Milt Gross Fund, a charitable organization for indigent cartoonists and their families. In 1930, Professor George Gallup, who taught at Drake, Columbia, and Northwestern Universities, released a study showing that the comics page was the most popular section of the newspaper, even with adults. Thus, King Features decided to capitalize on this by crafting strips meant to advertise various products in 1931. One of these first was General Foods Grape Nut Cereal, which first ran on May 17, 1931, and with its success, these features and advertising revenues they generated, the comic section expanded from 4 to 8 pages to 12 to 32 pages. On September of 1931, Puck, the Comic Weekly, was distributed to 17 papers and 6 million readers, with advertising that cost $16,000 a page. It was introduced in 1935 and included such comics as Betty Boop, Hajeed by Dr. Seuss, and The Cupies by Rose O'Neill. However, it only lasted for 3 months due to its small size, ironic considering that the comic strip pages will eventually shrink in general. William Randolph Hearst would continue to have a personal hand in King Features and arranged The Henry by Carl Anderson to come to America on December 17th in 1934 after 2 years in Germany, and the Saturday Evening Post with a Sunday strip being added on March 10th of 1935. Little Lulu will replace Henry in the Post. A pantomime strip about a bald boy and his adventures, Anderson only started on it when he was 67 years old and would continue with the strip until 1942 before various cartoonists would carry on till October of 28th of 2008. Of note, Henry is one of the few early comic strips to depict black characters in a positive light, unlike the racial stereotypes many did at the time. Otto Seglow joined King Features in 1933, producing Little King on September 9th of 1934, which ran from until his death until 1975. Max Fleischer, meanwhile, produced Betty Boop, a comic strip based on the popular animated character, which ran from July 23rd of 1934 to November 28th of 1937. And with King Features and comic strips reaching their heights, we will conclude this for today. But join me again next week when we conclude this two-part episode of the history of King Features Syndicate, as comic books expand even further, going into crime, adventure, and of course the invention of the comic superhero. And now it is October 15th, when this episode finally comes out, because I'm pre-recording this a little bit, because I'll be out of town for the rest of the week. And, just trying to give an update. But as a result, I will not be doing a favorite comic book of this week, since the comic book won't be out till Wednesday, and I'll actually going to miss it this time. I have a life outside of comics, believe it or not. However, I will give a nice recommended read, and I would recommend Tomb of Dracula Complete Correction, Volume 1, the great trade of the classic 1970s series from Marvel that was originally written by Jerry Conway, is drawn by Gene Colan from throughout the entire series. And during this first volume, which collects the issues 1 through 15, also along with the episodes of the Black and White Dracula Lives collection. There's a fantastic transition, though, because it does start a little bit rough. But then we go, and Jerry Conway would leave the series after 3 issues and take over Archie Goodwin for a few issues and Gardner Fox. But once Marv Wolfman took over, the series really found its stride. And this is where you found a lot of the great Marvel horror characters come out. Most notably Blade, who I think you've been following, might be on Facebook and Twitter and so forth. I've been mentioning as one of the Marvel's most first successful movie, along with being a horror movie of all things too. So yeah, that will make great October viewing, and Tomb of Dracula makes great October reading. And it was a great classic in general. So yes, while no current comic book, check out Tomb of Dracula this week if you feel like getting a read. And join me again next week when we get to part 2 of the King Features Syndicate. And until then, go out and enjoy yourself a good comic book.